is where Chris is going to be using that. So not too big of a deal, and we are off.
All right, Chris going first. Starts with that Tapu Lele, attaches a Psychic. He does have an Ultra Ball too, so he will be able, if he wants to, is to search for that Tapu Lele, use another Wonder Tag, get a Bridget, and try to get his setup going. It's kind of that classic turn one, like we always say.
Yeah, this is just exactly what we've seen out of most of the Garbodor players here, is that, you know, you kind of need a lot of Pokemon on the board to function. You need whatever your attacker is, whether Espeon or Drampa, and you need multiple Trebushes.
And
so
there's that beautiful full art Bridget coming down in play.
Getting 3 Pokemon. I'm sure it'll be Drampa, Trubbish here, unless Chris has a different idea. No, yeah, it's just going to be Drampa, Trubbish. Kind of the start you want to have. You want to have multiple Trubbishes, both because they have lower amount of hit points, and you wouldn't mind having one Garbotoxin Garbodor and one Trash Lance Garbodor out, and then you just need the single Drampa.
Yeah, so we talked about last round how the Garbotoxin Garbodor, while very good, wasn't what Brad wanted to go for in the Decidueye matchup. Now, there's a lot of abilities in Pablo's deck. Would he try to go for that Garbotoxin Garbodor? And by the way, Pablo just passed.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so Pablo actually just draws his card, leaves a Ralt active, and passes the turn with nothing else in play. So unfortunate start for Pablo.
Yeah, it seems his hand is just a bunch of energies and unplayable items.
And it doesn't look like Chris is going to be able to capitalize on this. So Pablo will get another turn. He just a Versus Seeker.
No, he already has that. He doesn't need it.
Yeah, he can evolve. But that's really it. He just has passed the turn back.
This Gardevoir deck has a lot of comeback potential, but I don't know if you can come back from just passing every turn.
Yeah, I mean, are we going to see it? We're going to see a Sycamore here. And can Chris find a way?
All right, Chris, for the win, needs at least a double colorless. Does he find it off the Sycamore? He does. And he even has the Potown and Garbodor to make Berserk to 150.
Turn on the Berserk, take the knockout on the Curly, and wow, unfortunate way to lose game 1 for Pablo. You can see the look on his face. He just says, wow, I just didn't have anything. I even got an extra turn. All I did was just put an evolution into play and then lose the game. So wow, he didn't even really get to play the game. He didn't make any decisions besides evolving.
And this is such a good matchup for Pablo too, because of that, the access to Twilight GX and the ability to set up multiple attackers and have energy acceleration for himself. And it's the one thing we keep seeing with this Gardevoir GX deck is it's a stage 2.
Yes.
There's a lot of moving parts. There's rare candies. There's energy. He's playing Fisherman and all this stuff that doesn't really help him early on. He kind of just has to survive early, and then he'll get there with the late game and be all set up and pretty. But right now, as you saw it wasn't looking good.
Yeah, I mean, having to play a stage 2 without a way to kind of get around the normal evolution rules like a Greninja might with water duplicates, or as we saw with Decidueye with Forest of Giant Plants. You know, you're just rare candying. You're just doing it the classic way, so you definitely have a lot of moving parts and a lot of awkward draws. That is unfortunate for Pablo. I mean, this was a particularly awkward draw. Just no cards to play, nothing to get on the board, which is very unfortunate for him. Got to be really disheartening to just lose a game where you actually couldn't have done anything, but the good news is we have 46 minutes left on the clock. Pablo will get to go first, and let's see if he can mount a comeback here. He's going to need to win game 1 to force game 2 to force a game 3.
Yeah, and on the flip side, Chris Siakala is jumping for joy. He's like, oh, man, this is a hard matchup. I stole that game. I'm looking good right now.
Oh yeah, you didn't really have to do anything, and you just got a free win. It feels great. And taking a look at the opening hand of Pablo, I think that was a Ralts.
Yeah, it started with the Ralts. And looking at Chris's hand, if my guess is correct, his first hand is kind of like Pablo's hand from last game.
Right, so looking at Pablo's prizes here, rare candy.
Oh no, there's the Bridget. That could be an important card, especially during this turn 1.
Yeah, he only runs one of them. And 2 Sycamore, not anything huge other than that. And we are off for game 2. Pablo Meza will be going first. Let's see if he can capitalize here.
He gets the Diancie from the top of the deck. It's really one of the cards to help him get set up, but unfortunately it does take an energy, so he'll need to try to commit to that too.
Yeah, Diancie is one of the interesting cards. We've seen players go multiple routes with this Gardevoir deck. We've seen some play Diancie. Just lets you, if you have the Pokemon on your bench, you can just immediately evolve it. So you can go ahead and go, okay, I have this route, I'll find a Curly and put it on. We've also seen Alolan Vulpix, which is kind of a slower answer but more powerful. Just beacon, search your deck for an AG Pokemon, put them in your hand. We've seen kind of players go multiple ways, and I believe that Mike Fouché yesterday was running the Diancie in his list, which does not surprise me because Pablo and Mike Fouché are on the same testing team, so they probably drew similar conclusions about how the deck should be structured.
All right, and there we see the 6 cards from N. He does get another Waltz. That's very important. And here is the retreat.
Yeah, unfortunate that Pablo had to commit a double colorless there in order to retreat, but he couldn't just leave that active. He has, not only does he want the Diancie in the active position, but he doesn't want damage on the Ralt, and he especially does not want that double colorless to get Righteous Edged. Are we not seeing anything here? No, we have a Tapu Lele. Okay.
Tapu Lele, but unfortunately, if he goes for the Bridget, he doesn't have an energy to follow up, so it looks like he will choose N instead, because he definitely doesn't want to miss those energy drops. You really want to keep up with this deck. You're the faster deck generally, so if you can capitalize on that in the early game, it'll mean you're not as worse off during the late game.
Yeah, we've seen that a lot where, like we've talked about, Bridget is the optimal turn 1 play, but sometimes, you can't just leave your hand unplayable otherwise after a Bridget. You need cards on the board and in your hand, and just having to say, all right, well, I'll get 2 Trebishes and a Drampa, but I don't have anything else is not where you want to be. So Chris has to take the kind of a lower reward play of the end.
And one thing we kind of see the interaction between is Potown and Diancie. Diancie's Sparkling Wish is able to get around that effect of Potown, whereas if you would have played like Alolan Vulpix, it's something he really couldn't get around without a Field Blower.
And we see Chris using Big Wheel GX, which is a card. On the card, it says shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 10 cards. I think a lot of the times what it says practically is force your opponent to play an end the next turn.
Yeah.
The amount of times that we see a person Big Wheel GX and then get to actually use all those cards is very, very small. We might actually see it this time, though. I don't think Pablo has access to an end, although he did draw the Ultra Ball.
Yeah, he actually does have the Rare Candy and the Gardevoir GX. Already a much better start to the game than game 1.
Yeah, he actually has things on the board. He has places to go, and he is going to use the ability there of Gardevoir GX, kind of attaching that energy for free, does not take up his energy attachment for the turn. And the decision from Pablo here is he's going to Ultra Ball. He has 2 cards he needs to discard, and now he needs to find an N, I would imagine. Sorry, Tapu Lele for an N. However, it looks like he is also considering going for the Remoraid.
Well, he does have the N in the discard
from
the turn before.
Oh, he does, sorry.
With the Versus Seeker in hand.
Then this is perfect. He's just going to get this Remoraid, put it onto the board, and Versus Seeker for the N. So again, everything is reset. Chris Siakala will have 6 cards in hand. Good choice of, good taste from Pablo with the Versus Seeker as well.
I'm partial to the Supreme Victors one.
Okay, you can have that opinion. But both players going back to 6 for an N, and Pablo definitely in the lead here. He's gonna be able to evolve into a Octillery or a Curlia. He's going to, he already has 1 Gardevoir GX on the board. He still has another energy attachment for the turn. Just getting everything he needs.
Although that 3 damage might come into play on that Gardevoir GX thanks to Potown.
Yeah, I mean, Gardevoir GX just has so many hit points that any kind of whittling away you can do is definitely what you want to be doing as you see the actual attachment for the turn onto the Gardevoir.
Yeah, because right now as it stands, granted, Chris needs a lot, but he can Choice Band Berserk with damage on the bench with a Professor Kukui and take a knockout on the Gardevoir. And it might be something he's looking for later on in the game, and that's why Potown's in this kind of deck. But thankfully for Pablo, Sparkling Wish gets around that, and he now has a Corellia in play, trying to set up multiple Gardevoir GX to try to take over this game.
And let's see if Chris can get some gets his board set up a little bit. He needs Trebushes. He has another Drampa hitting the board. Oh, and a Trebush. All right. So he's kind of skipped his first turn a little bit in that respect, but is now kind of able to get set up a little bit here.
Yeah, and then we're seeing Ultra Ball most likely getting another Trebush.
Does decide to go with the Trebush, just saying, you know what, I need to have two. I want to, even if I don't get a Garbotoxin Garbodor out, I want two Trash Lance Garbodors. These things have small hit points, can easily be Guzmud or Lysandered up. So,
and then Versus Seeker for the 4th N of the game right now.
Yeah, both players playing these ends just back and forth here. Resetting each other's hand. Again, you know, Pablo's were kind of forced. It was the only supporter he had in his turn 1 hand, and then he couldn't let Chris just have 10 cards in hand off of the big wheel.
And again, this is where Dancy is. If it was a Vulpix, he'd be Beacon and shuffle him back in with N.
Right, exactly. With Vulpix, you're getting another card, but it's not on the board. It's still susceptible to things like N.
All right. He chooses not to attach the DCE from his hand because it would not take a knockout. So instead he's just going to Righteous Edge 420.
Yeah, Pablo is playing the One Wonder energy, so Righteous Edge does have a little bit less rather, utility here. Not going to matter too much though in this matchup, but we've seen a lot of players play anywhere between 1 and 3.
Wow, here we see the Gallade coming down. It's something we really haven't seen focused on that much, but right now, Drampa's weak to fighting.
Yeah, I mean, the Gallade is a good card in some matchups, and it's just sort of free. You know, Pablo, we're already playing Ralts Curlia. Why not just play the Gallade? Kind of give yourself some different things to do. Specifically, I think the reason a lot of players are favoring Gallade is because of the interaction between Premonition and Abyssal Hand. Just letting you kind of draw the whatever, you know, however many cards you're going to draw, the X of your best ones on top.
Yeah, and there we see the 3 damage actually getting put on Gallade thanks to Potown. But again, it's just these little incremental damages that add up over time.
Yeah, and like you said, Drampa is weak to Gallade as well, so it has a little bit of extra utility in this matchup, and generally is just a fine attacker as well. So just it's such a low cost to play a card like that, so it just slots into basically every Gardevoir deck that I've seen.
And Chris does have a way to knock out the Gallade next turn if he has an evolution, because he will be able to evolve into Garbodor with the Potown in play to turn on Berserk of the second Drampa, but he also has to be wary. There's 2 energy on the Gardevoir GX on the bench already.
Yeah, he needs to be careful with that. It looks like we're seeing a Premonition. He's rearranging the top 5 cards. Looks like Pablo likes them like that. Kind of making sure he doesn't do anything wrong. And again, that weakness coming into play, that's a knockout for Pablo. He's using a not really one of his main attackers as a way to take 2 prizes there. And now this needs to be dealt with, or else it can easily take another 2 prizes on that Drampa on the bench.
Yeah, and we see with the N, he did not draw any double colorless. So he'll still be trying to search for it. He doesn't even have a Garbodor, and yeah, he's looking like, well, maybe I could Trash Lance for the knockout here, since Gallade is weak.
I don't actually know how many items in the discard pile of Pablo, but I think he's also saying there, you know, if I'm going to attack with the Drampa, it's going to be with a Righteous Edge anyway, so he's not really too concerned about that. Looks like they are doing an item count right now. I think there's 4 in there.
3 or 4, yeah. But here we see the Versus Seeker for the Teammates.
Yeah, Teammates, not a card that you see in every version of this deck, but I think it's very, very good. Every time we've seen it on camera, it's just been amazing.
Yeah, honestly, anytime you play a primarily non-EX or GX attacker, Teammates is amazing because they're going to take more knockouts throughout the game. So this card's going to be a lot more useful.
Yeah, we are going to see a knockout here with the Trash Lance because that Gallade, of course, is weak. I do believe there were 4 items in the discard pile. So that's a knockout. But again, Chris just knocked out a non-primary attacker and a 1 prize attacker from Pablo, whereas Pablo is now up by a single prize, and now he has 2 Gardevoir GXs onto the board after that rare candy.
Wow. And one thing we've actually been seeing these Garbodor decks use to combat Gardevoir GX is an SP on EX. to try and de-evolve them because you build up this incremental damage. But Chris opted for this Mewtwo because he's more afraid of Mirror or Espeon GX instead.
Yeah, it looks like Chris is definitely on the plan of I'm going to beat the Garbodor decks. He has, Kukui and Mewtwo to go a long way in that. Has not been as concerned with the Gardevoir decks.
All right, versus Seeker coming from Pablo. We see another end. No, the teammates. There we go.
So we saw ends go back and forth, and now we're seeing teammates go back and forth. Both players just playing incredibly powerful supporter cards on each of their turns. And it looks like Pablo's going to look through his deck and eventually... he has to consult his hand first. I believe he'll be taking an Octillery for sure. He doesn't actually have to show because he doesn't need 2 cards. He has to take Octillery for sure. That just makes the most sense there. And he also took a Ralts, I believe that was. Just getting ready to set up another Gardevoir.
It's like, you're going to see these anyway in a couple seconds.
Yeah, they're coming down. I mean, Chris can guess what he took.
And thankfully for Pablo, Chris did not get that Garbotoxin in play. So Secret Spring will be able to add a lot more energy this turn if he chooses to, or if he is able to draw it.
Yeah, he does need to Abyssal Hand here. So he's going to go ahead and draw 1 card. He could have played the Float Stone somewhere to draw multiple, but now
And here we go, Twilight GX from Gardevoir, kind of the trump card versus Trashlanche.
Yes, so we're saying I think 8 items get shuffled back in. So not only is this giving Pablo just access to all of those cards again, he's basically playing with a 70 card deck. He's able to just rebuy all of his best cards, but he's also completely blanking the Garbodor and Trashlanche, just saying, all right, well, all my items are going back into my deck. Yeah, I'm going to draw them again, and maybe they're not as useful, like things like Rare Candy, and maybe I just don't want to play them to put them in my discard pile again. But for now, your Garbodor is just doing nothing. I think there's actually no items left after that.
He shuffled in 7, and what was such a powerful attacker doing 140 damage for 1 energy is now doing 0 for 1 energy and is stuck there.
Exactly. He also shuffled back in the Glade, so that that Ralts that we see on the board there for Pablo could easily turn into a Glade and take the last 2 prizes once the game gets to that point off of a Drampa. So he just kind of gets to have 2 Glades in his deck as well.
Yeah, it's kind of this great interaction you see with this deck. So Twilight GX shuts off Trashlanche, and it forces Chris to use Drampa GX as an attacker. Well, if you force Drampa out, you have that Glade to come and sweep up.
Exactly. And it even got the Rare Candies back so we can get the Glade faster. It's just that Twilight GX is just amazing. In general, it's a great attack, but it's amazing versus the Garbodor decks.
And there we see a Desperation Professor Kukui. He now adds 20 damage to his 20 damage attack thanks to the Field Blower from earlier.
Yeah, it's still nowhere near where he wants to be. Looks like he's going to, Chris is going to Ultra Ball here. Pulls a Trubbish to the front, could be just wanting to build up more. He's saying that this Garbodor is going down. I will need another one eventually. It's actually possible that Pablo is able to play the rest of this game out without playing many items. He's probably going to play some number, but it's possible that he just plays it not enough to actually be relevant at any given time.
All right, and he already attached for the turn, I believe, for the Tapu Lele, so
he just has to
Trashlanche for 40.
So not the most explosive turn for Chris. Like we said, he had the Kukui just to not really gain him any advantage. Usually you want to play Kukui in spots where the extra 20 damage can get you the knockout or get you to a relevant number. This does set up that Gardevoir for knockouts down the line with certain Berserk combinations, but definitely not where Chris wanted to be. He was in an okay spot, and then he got Twilight GX'd.
That's such insane. Shuffle 10 cards from your discard back into your deck. All right, so there we see a Versus Seeker from Pablo. Granted, he's adding in items, but now that there was 1 in there, now you're 2 in there, you're not really worried about that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it is some number, but the number is not relevant. And especially when you're drawing 7 cards, you'll accept that to draw 7 cards.
And with the way how powerful Infinite Force is from Gardevoir, right now his active is taking the knockout on the Garbodor. So he can start charging up the bench one with Secret Springs and regular attachment for the turn.
Yeah, he just has Pablo just has exactly the right amount of energy to take the knockout here, and he can kind of protect his energy investments with the benched Gardevoir. And I would expect to see this Gardevoir. Chris is hoping he can knock it out. He'll need some damage on the board, plus a double colorless and a choice band. But it's kind of this thing where Pablo has committed to energy to the active Gardevoir, and he's saying, all right, I'm just probably not going to commit anymore to this unless something big happens. And I have this one on the bench that when you knock this one out is going to start just doing massive amounts of damage.
Yeah, and there we see the teammates again from Chris. It's definitely been one of his favorite supporters to use to try to come back from this game.
And teammates just super, super powerful, allowing you tons of options. And I don't know exactly what the contents of Chris's hand is here, but he does need to have a way to turn on Berserk to do more damage.
Well, we do see him grab that Garbotoxin Garbodor from his deck along with the double colorless. So evolving with the Potown in play means that it will have 3 damage.
Looks like he's going to go ahead and attach the double colorless to the Mewtwo promo. Looks like Pablo was going to have to read it, but a card that we have seen a little bit in the Garbodor decks, especially I think mostly for the mirror. I know Michael Primawatt's initial list around the time of Seattle Regionals was running it for that Psychic Attack, but we haven't seen it in every list. It seems to have fallen to the wayside a bit since then.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that he went for that. He was 10 damage short with the Drampa GX without having the choice band, because he kind of needed both of it. He needed the double colorless, he needed the evolution of Garbodor, but he also needed the choice band, so teammates couldn't really get there.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, is he kind of needed 3 different cards. We see a knockout here. Pablo Meza going down to 1 prize remaining. Any knockout on the board will win him the game. And I don't think Chris Siakala really has options here. Again, there's just another Gardevoir GX sitting on the bench, just waiting to attack. He can attach 2 energy to it next turn. He can just a double colorless to it next turn. There's just when you have 2 attackers built up like this, it's so hard. And 1 prize left, it's so hard for Chris to actually maneuver anything.
Yeah, it's kind of weird seeing Chris actually play it out. Like, granted, he won the first one in super quick fashion. So there's not really much of a time constraint. You still have, as we see, over half the time left of the round. But really kind of like no hope in this game right now. Like, you can try to go for a knockout, but...
He just says, okay, well, this actually isn't going to be a knockout, and you just get to go into your turn. Pablo's abilities were shut off, but I think if Chris had managed to find an end that turn and kind of get lucky off of it, he would have been able to put himself in a position to maybe win the game, but it was just so far out of his reach, as Pablo he's got to be fist pumping. He's saying, all right, I lost the first game because I couldn't actually do anything, and now I've earned this game. That game was pretty easy, nothing too hard. I got that early Gallade knockout. I was never really threatened, and now we're moving on to a game 3. So Pablo is definitely in a position where, when you start the match, you're saying, all right, I want to win this match. I'm gonna, win 2-0 hopefully, and then after you lose the first one, you're like, oh man, all right, I lost like that. I don't want to lose like that again. So now he feels very, very happy to have won that game. And we are starting game 3 with 26 minutes left on the clock, so we should be able to finish this one.
Yeah, it's one thing because it's still very early in this tournament. You're still kind of feeling out your deck. Like, granted, it's round 3, so maybe it's time, like, you made the right deck choice by now. But after seeing a game 1 like Pablo did, you're like, did I make the right decision?
Right, exactly. I mean, that is one of the costs, right? So Pablo's deck is that's not an average start for him. That's not even 1 in every 10 starts, or else you wouldn't play the deck, right? But there is a cost when you're playing a deck like Gardevoir, and you can go, all right, well, I got to evolve. I do have a lot of moving parts. I do have random stage 2s or stage 1s and rare candies and just cards that don't do a whole lot on their own. Whereas in a deck like Chris's, you do have evolution, but you also just have these big, you start with the Drampa GX and you don't have a good hand, you just big wheel, right?
Yeah. All right, and the good news for Chris, he will get to go first. That means maybe he can stick a Garbotoxin Garbodor before Pablo even has a chance to get Gardevoir out.
Yeah, he is going to go ahead and go first, which is a huge advantage for him. He kind of got to have a free one in game one, and now he just gets to go first, which is a big advantage. Like you said, he can get those evolutions out before Pablo's, theoretically. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the prizes.
All right, a few energy in the prizes.
And a fisherman.
So if this game goes long, we might see Pablo kind of struggling for energy.
Ooh, the Garbotoxin Garboder is prized.
Wow, and he only plays the one.
Yeah, so we've seen a lot of players kind of move to a 2-2 split, thinking that shutting off abilities is more important, but Chris has chosen to play one Garboder, and it is going to come back to hurt him now, it looks like.
Yeah, and we see the turn one Bridget from Chris. Classic Garbodor play. And honestly, I think Pablo has it in his hand too.
Yeah, so exactly just what these decks want to do. We said that Pablo's deck was a setup deck. Chris's is not exactly, but it still requires a lot of different Pokemon in play. And it looks like Chris is checking his deck just to make sure what's prized. And
this
he's saying,
the point where he's like, ugh.
Right. Oh, it is really prized. All right. Well, that's got to change the game plan. And that just goes to show you how important it is to determine what your prizes are, at least the big things like that, because Chris could have played this game in a totally different way had he thought he had access to turn 2 Garbotoxin.
Yeah, you have to analyze what is good in the matchup first and foremost. And then you're like, okay, now I need to make sure I have those cards.
Right. If not, I need to play in a completely different way.
Like, I think for Pablo, one of those cards is Field Blower for him. We saw, even though he won last game, Potown did a lot of damage to his board. So if Chris actually had a faster setup, it might have been trouble for him.
Yeah, and Potown is one of the things that can kind of push that Berserk damage, or even Trash Lance damage, I guess, into knockout range. Gardevoir GX has a huge amount of hit points, and Berserk cannot knock it out in one hit, and Trash Lance takes a lot of items to do so. So just any kind of incremental damage you can get with Potowns and things like that are going to be huge. Field Blower also good for knocking off the tool on the that's turning on the Garbotoxin. So definitely an important card in this matchup for Pablo.
There we see the Bridget from Pablo now. He will have 3 Ralts and a Remoraid in play to the 3 Trubbish and the Drampa GX from Chris. And his start is all right. He does have a teammates, which can be good if Chris's start is good as well, because he can teammates for rare candies, for Gardevoirs, for Gallade double colorless if he even chooses to.
Yeah, the big thing that Pablo was missing on that turn was actually an energy. He had the Bridget, which is just exactly where you want to be on turn 1, but no energy to attach. He would have really liked to have seen that. He also would have liked to have started with the Diancie or had a way to get Diancie into the active position, but not complaining too much, but especially because Gardevoir GX can kind of accelerate your energy, so he still wants to have as many in play as possible. It still is unfortunate, but it's not the biggest deal in the world.
Yeah, and you never really want your opponent to knock out a Pokemon, but with cards like Teammates, you actually kind of do sometimes. And looking at Pablo's hand, I believe I saw Teammates Ultra Ball like Gardevoir GX and like a Sycamore and a Choice Band. So his next turn could be very explosive if he has access to the Teammates.
Yeah, and let's see what Chris can put together here.
A Sycamore for a fresh hand of 7. Still is not attached in energy. Got the Float Stone and the double colorless. Now, he goes for the knockout here. That means we might see a quick Gallade coming down, or even just a Gardevoir if Pablo draws a few energy.
I mean, I think if you're Chris here, you have to just play into this. Like,
you have to believe.
Yeah, if he has a teammates, he has it, but you can't just, you can't just think he has a teammates and not do it.
Yeah, you have the one card in your deck.
Yeah, exactly. The one copy. And sure, there are a few more, virtual copies and Tapu Lele's and things like that, but you just have to go for it and just accept that he's gonna accept that if he has a teammates, he has it.
So we have the Ultra Ball in Pablo's hand, so it's looking like he'll get Rare Candy double colorless, most likely discarding the Corellia and the Choice Band? Or maybe he discards the Gardevoir.
I didn't quite see exactly what was in his hand. He is going to get a Gallade out this turn, I would expect. Just getting kind of a free knockout, so to speak, on that Drampa is huge.
Yeah, so he chooses to discard the Gardevoir, meaning he can evolve the Corellia this turn and set up, maybe he even draws a Rescue Stretcher. gets that Gardevoir, plays
Sure,
it next
sure.
turn. And
Yes.
here we see Glade again.
And now Chris is just crushed. Like you see the teammates come down, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh man. And then you see the Ultra Ball for the Glade, and you're just like, man, okay. Well, now all of my energy's gone. Pablo takes 2 prizes. My main attacker is knocked out. Pablo's gonna get to Premonition. Chris has to find a Garbodor now. Just very, very good turn for Pablo.
And there's the Rescue Stretcher on top of the deck. And he has a Sycamore in hand for next turn.
It's like so this is Glade's Premonition ability, allowing you to rearrange the top cards of your deck. It looks like he might put a Hex Maniac to the top. Looks like that's exactly what he's doing. The Rescue Stretcher is interesting because he only has Sycamore in hand, so he would like draw it and then have to discard it, or just he'd shuffle the Gardevoir back in, I guess. But either way, Sensitive Blade, that's a KO. That's 2 prizes and no energy
Well, he got
on
the
Chris's side of the board.
For Pablo, he got the double energy off the prizes, which is important too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. He has a Curly in play. I'm sorry. I thought I didn't realize he actually evolved to Curlia.
Yeah, so it's amazing because
So you're absolutely right. I had no idea what you were talking about, and then I realized that was a Curlia.
All right, there we see the Wonder Tag for the Professor Kukui. It might be because he's just 1 item short of knocking out this Glade. But honestly, if I'm Pablo, I'm fine with that. Yeah, you can knock out my Glade, but I have Gardevoir GX next turn. I have a double colorless in hand. I'm going to Sycamore, hope to draw Fairy Energy.
Yeah, I mean, again, the Glade is not the main thing that really matters, right? I mean, the Glade's nice to have. Ooh,
the Garbotoxin Garbodor comes into play, meaning this double colorless in hand is kind of useless. He may go for Rescue Stretcher Glade again, but Glade is not the attack you want against Garbodor. You want it against Drampa GX instead.
If he didn't actually, he put the Hex Maniac on top.
I believe it's just so he can discard it.
Yeah, no, he's going to be able to draw the Rescue Stretcher here. He does attach to the Curlia, doing just what you said. So that actually is an interesting swing, right? Chris got an early knockout. Pablo immediately responded with having a Glade. And then even though Chris is only knocking out the Glade, he also put that Garbotoxin into play, which actually matters a ton.
Yeah, it's looking like he'll Ultra Ball here, maybe getting a Remoraid or maybe a Corellia, but his turn's definitely not looking as good now just because of that float zone on Garbotoxin.
Yeah, I mean, the Gardevoir GX deck is powerful because it can accelerate energy due to that ability. It's powerful because it can Abyssal Hand, right? It's very reliant on abilities, so Garbotoxin being online is bad news for Pablo.
Especially with just 1 Field Blower in his list.
Yeah, just running a single copy. We've seen 1 or 2, usually 1. Actually, looks like Pablo may have had 2 in the deck and then crossed it out at the last minute.
And it might cost him here.
Yes, we see another Curlia hit the board for Pablo.
Yeah, Rescue Stretcher, Glade, Sensitive Blade, because you played a Sycamore this turn. But if that Glade gets knocked out and maybe like Chris plays an N, Pablo's really on the back foot. He doesn't have access to Octillery. Even if he did have it, Garbotoxin is active.
Yeah, exactly. And it doesn't take much for Chris to find a knockout here. I mean, Glade is weak to Garbodor, like we said. It's not like he has to struggle.
All right, and there we see the Sensitive Blade for the knockout. Pablo gets a Fairy Energy from the prizes.
So let's see what Chris can put together here.
There's the Psychic Energy. Does he have the Trash Lance Garbodor?
There's a Teammates. All right, so he can find whatever he needs here. He is going to have a very easy knockout. So this game has actually been really back and forth. After Chris gets a knockout here, Pablo won't really have much on the board. I don't quite know the contents of his hand, but he will have no access to abilities.
Fairy Energy, at least an Ultra Ball, and then maybe something else.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, he can't, he doesn't have
maybe a Sycamore, I believe.
Oh, okay. Well, that's something at least. He does have a Sycamore.
All right, but Teammates coming in clutch again for Chris. being able to just keep these Garboders coming and coming. Trashlanch taking the knockout on the Gallade. And now, the one good thing is like an end didn't come down, so Pablo still has access to Ultra Ball, still has access to the Sycamore in his hand.
And we see that Ultra Ball hitting, going to find a Gardevoir GX, and then we're going to see a Sycamore. So Pablo's still in it. This matchup really back and forth. Both players tied at 3 prizes remaining.
All right, and Potown dealing 30 damage to Gardevoir GX. Maybe
again,
it'll come in.
Softening up the Gardevoirs to be able to be knocked out a little bit.
Yeah, fortunately for Pablo, though, as soon as he Twilight GXs this turn, Chris doesn't really have anything of sorts charged up.
Yep, we're just seeing this kind of same situation we saw happen last time for Chris, which is that Trashlanch plays a big role at first, and then Twilight GX completely undoes it. Pablo taking a look through his discard pile, just deciding which cards he wants to Twilight GX back in.
And this is smart, playing the Versus Seekers in his hand because they're going to be shuffled in anyway. Why not, right?
Yeah, exactly. One Versus Seeker finds a teammate. The next one looks like it's trying to find a Professor Sycamore. Just, why not have these in my hand?
All right, and I believe we will see the Twilight GX.
This is one of my favorite GX attacks. Just so much value in just putting those 10 cards back in your deck. Not only giving you access to them again, but also with things like this, right? Oh, you know, your Trashlanch is now doing nothing. I have access to all these cards again. I can use them. We saw. We could see Pablo have a third Gallade, even though there's one in his deck list. We could see him use it 3 times in this game. We saw it twice last game, of course.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting just because in other matchups, it's like, all right, I'm going to get back a lot of resources. I'll have these cards later on. I can like kind of play them haphazardly early on just because I'm like, okay, late game, I'll have these back again. And against a deck like this with Trashlanch, you just completely shut down their attacker.
Yeah, so it looks like a bunch of items there's still one item left in Pablo's discard pile. It looks like Pablo valuing putting back some energy. It was 2 double colorless energy.
Yeah, especially seeing like he has the Fisherman prize and another energy prize. He's like, okay, maybe you can do a little bit of damage to me, but I need these back to try to win.
On our backup table, we just heard that Jimmy Pendarvis won his match. I believe he is now advancing to 3-0.
Oh, wow. All right, congratulations to him.
to him.
And there we see a Field Blower on his own Floatstone from Chris. He's like, well, I'm going to tap Lulele right now.
Yeah, very interesting play here, just, you know, using one of the lesser known, or lesser used rather, abilities of Field Blower to just remove your own things. Ultra Ball finds a Tapu Lele, like you said, Wonder Tag.
And maybe Pablo's like, well, I gotta hope he doesn't have the replacement Floatstone.
Right.
Unfortunately for him, he does have the replacement Floatstone.
Yeah, he just wouldn't have made that play if he didn't already have it in hand.
And there's the N, ending Pablo down to 3. And he just put back a bunch of items that he doesn't really want to draw. Rare Candy, Versus Seekers, because there's less supporters in his discard now.
Yeah, exactly. Pablo only getting 3 cards. Both players getting 3 cards. And man, this has been a really interesting match. We saw game 1 and game 2 just kind of be lopsided, one for each player. And this has been kind of more back and forth. Chris seems to be stabilizing now. But it's still kind of slow going for him. Like, you know, Pablo has had the Twilight GX. He's still slowing him down. And we haven't seen the dominant performances like we've seen out of either game 1 or game 2.
Yeah, and there's a double colorless on the Garbodor. We'll see an Acid Spray for 100 damage, and the head's knocking out or taking off the Fairy energy from Gardevoir GX. And now it's at 130 damage, meaning one more Acid Spray actually knocks out the Gardevoir GX.
Yeah, with the choice band attached there, double colorless energy is the draw for Pablo.
All right, so a single fairy will allow Pablo to take a knockout with Infinite Force against this Garbodor because of the 3 energy on the Garbodor. But you still have 100 damage left on your active, and it's kind of a liability and not really much else set up.
And Pablo was able to draw well off of that and a 3. Diancie, not the most impactful card at this stage in the game, but still could come in handy.
All right, does it look like... I don't think he got a Ralts from this Sycamore. Yeah, it looks like a Corellia instead. So this is really his only attacker. And
yeah.
wow, we even see kind of a misstep. He has that Field Blower. He could play it. I think he's opting not to, but he takes the 3 damage from the Potown, and he gets the Water Energy off the prizes.
All right, so now Pablo down to just 2 prizes remaining. Any EX or GX knockout will win him the game and the match. Chris still at 3, 9 minutes left on the clock.
So actually, looking at Chris's hand, I don't think he has anything. I believe it's a Pokemon and then a Choice Band and a Float Stone. It's kind of the one drawback to ending yourself last turn and not taking prizes is you're just stuck with that hand.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, they both went to 3 last turn. Chris was ahead on the board, but you know, when both players draw bad, you're only getting 3 cards. It's not like it's not like you're getting 6 or something. You have a huge advantage, and he just has to pass.
Can Pablo now try to come back from this? I see as a Lysander, but he does not have enough energy to be able to take a knockout on a Tapu Lele for game. He has that Wonder Energy, but you also don't want to commit more stuff to this Gardevoir GX.
Yeah, this Gardevoir GX is only with 100 hit points remaining, can be knocked out pretty easily, although Chris is going to need to have some favorable draws here. So he really has nothing going on, either on the board or in his hand.
Yeah, and Pablo is debating that Field Blower in his hand. It is really nice to get the use of your abilities back, but one thing you're also doing is letting Chris get his abilities too. We saw earlier in the game, Chris actually Field Blowers his own Float Stone off his Garbodor just so he can use Tapu Lele, and now he actually played it, so abilities are live again, and another N, putting Pablo down to 2, but now he can use Octillery to draw up to 5.
Yeah, Pablo just deciding that the Garbotoxin was just too powerful to have. He can make immediate use of his abilities with that Abyssal Hand, like you said. So he's just, and even the Gardevoir GX as well. So he just says, you know what, I'm going to be the first one to use these anyways. I am kind of behind here. I need to get something set up. And so I think that was a really smart play by Pablo, although unfortunately he does have to end himself down to 2, but he will be able to draw right back up to 5 with Abyssal Hand.
All right, it does not look like he got any basic fairy energy off that Abyssal Hand.
Nope, he did get the Ralts in play. Nothing else, though, to do this turn.
Yeah, so it might just be an Infinite Force 460. It's not really something you want to see, but it's all he really has.
Yeah, both players kind of struggling here. I can't see what's in Chris's hand, but I don't think he really has much based on his body language.
Yeah, there's a Psychic Energy that is debating where to attach to. There's a Drampa GX, and I think another couple of tools. Kind of the same hand he had last
he just actually passes
turn.
the turn back to Pablo, so Pablo excitedly takes a draw. He has Versus Seeker in hand, now he has Energy, he has Rescue Stretcher, so now he has quite a number of things to do, and you can kind of see the excitement in Pablo just, you know, snapping that card up and maybe getting ready to win this game after taking a really unfortunate loss in Game 1.
So I believe he's 1 energy short of taking the knockout with like a Guzma or a Lysander this turn, unless he gets 2 fairies and Secret Strings, both of them. But he is looking to see what he could put back with the Rescue Stretcher. I believe it's a full line of Gardevoir.
Yeah, he's just taking the full Gardevoir line. I don't think he's just taking the full Gardevoir line, shuffling that back in. One of the advantages of Rescue Stretcher is it kind of, you know, is a modal card in a way. You can either put 1 Pokemon back or into your hand or put 3 back into your deck.
This game has been really back and forth. It was knockout after knockout, kind of, I'll knock out all your energies, and then you come up, knock out all my energies. And then now it was kind of a moment where N kind of put both players on the back foot. They're like, I don't know what to do. But now it seems Pablo's really taken advantage of this, and Chris is just hoping to draw something.
Oh yeah, I mean, the pivotal moment came when Chris and both players to 3 and just had, his 3 was much worse than Pablo's, and he lost his Garbotoxin advantage as well, and Pablo has just been able to take over this game ever since.
All right, he gets the Corellia off the Ultra Ball, setting up a secondary attacker. Remember, Chris still has 3 prizes left, so even if this active Gardevoir GX gets knocked out, Pablo will be able to come back and try to steal the game.
I think Pablo is definitely ahead here. He just needs a Gardevoir GX to have a second attacker set up. He has one in the active position. He's only needs one more. He needs 2 more prizes. So
and
one
here
GX
is
or
the
GX
Sycamore,
knockout.
fresh 7 cards.
7.
All right, hand's not bad.
No, I mean he just doesn't need a whole lot. He's just attaching energy. He has the Gardevoir GX in hand. If this one gets knocked out, he's in a commanding position here, and it's really on Chris to do something on his next turn to keep himself in this game.
Rescue stretcher.
And there's already a ton of items. Can't really play around that now, but he's still trying to give himself the best possible way, just in case Chris draws something.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no reason. I mean, Pablo's a very experienced player, very smart player. He's not going to, make any mistakes. He's just trying to give himself the best possible chance. And here we go. What was the draw for Chris? What has he got going on?
A Po-Town. That is not what you want to see. Pablo has almost for sure locked the game up. I don't think there's really much Chris can do right now. Almost everything gets knocked out by this Gardevoir.
Yeah, I can't quite make out all the cards, but just he's looking at his hand, doesn't really have much going on. I see he has a Drampa.
Yeah, I think Chris just sees the light at the end of the tunnel and can't get there.
Well, it's darkness at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah,
is what it
darkness
is.
at the end of the tunnel. And with that Wonder Energy too, it's kind of like this Righteous Edge won't actually discard an energy. So it kind of makes it a little bit easier for Pablo to take the knockout on the Drampa.
All right, so we're going to 180 damage
Pablo's
there. Pablo
counting.
just,
There's that. Oh, he's like, no, Wonder Energy, man.
yeah, it's the whole thing there. Pablo's counting it up and shaking the hand
there
of Pablo
it is, Infinite
Meza.
Force, 180 damage.
After taking a very disappointing loss in